Catherine Collins. Oh, I enjoyed talking to Catherine. Such energy, such interesting story. So, Catherine has a podcast, 5 Year You. She wrote a great book on how to help mothers with finances. Her background is writing. She loved to read as a kid. Loves to write. I opened the conversation with what did you enjoy doing as a child, which happens to be a question that in her consulting she asks her clients, and it's I wonder how you would answer that question. What did you enjoy doing as a child? Do you still do it now? Because generally speaking, that's really what we love to do. Because we would do it without pay. We would do it freely. We would do it voluntarily at times. But a great conversation about Catherine. She's gone through some hardships and how she's had to make great pivots in her life. And it's funny how she resists discipline throughout the conversation. There's a certain stigma attached to discipline, isn't there? Some have a very kind of militant attitude, and I present the thesis that it's a spectrum on our conversation. But what she reveals and how she sets up structure and how to feed her children and how she has a slush fund for hobbies and things like that screams to me of structure and discipline. But it's a great conversation with Catherine. She's a really, really giving person. She's gone through so much, and yet she wants to share with others and let everybody know that, this is what I'm doing to turn it around. You can do the same. Great conversation with Catherine Collins. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Excited to talk to you, Catherine Collins. Thank you so much for your time. Catherine, what did you like to do as a kid?
Oh, I love to write all the time. I was a weird kid. I always had a notebook with me. I was not very outdoorsy. I absolutely love to write. And so it's no surprise that's what I do most of the time for my day job today.
So it is no surprise that you've taken that as a child and moved it along.
No, it's not. I mean, it took different forms over the years, but when I've done different work on myself and tried to find work that brings me joy, that I'm passionate about, I've thought back to myself as a kid and been like, that was such a strange thing as a kid. Most kids had toys when they went somewhere, and I always had a little notebook making a family newspaper and like distributing it under my parents'
Ah,
door and things like that. So it kind of makes sense.
wow. Were you a big reader?
Yes, very much so. Still am today. Yeah.
So that's really where does it start with the reading or with the writing?
I'm not sure. I feel like they go hand in hand. I'm a highly sensitive person, and writing is my way of processing things. I recently moved and found a whole stack of very angsty teenage poems. I mean, I think it's
Ah,
yeah, they were serious, and so I think that it's always been my way of processing things. Again, like a very internal processor,
mm.
not much of like a big talker or outdoorsy person, like I said. So I think reading and writing is my way of understanding the world and myself.
Yeah, teenage poems. Yeah, that's you think they'd be embarrassed about that now. I
Yeah,
wonder.
yeah, there might have been some big trash bags during the move.
So why is that, Catherine, an important question to ask somebody what they like doing as a kid?
Oh my gosh, I love that you asked that. My partner and I, we have a personal development company called 5 Year You, and literally on the very first page of what we ask our coaching clients is, "What did you like doing as a kid?" And so I'm already feeling like connected to this conversation because you asked me that. And the reason we ask that is because it's so easy for adults to get disconnected from who they really are. We go through all of the check boxes of life. We follow this prescription that society has for us. And people become adults, they make their salaries, they get their house, they mow their lawn, and they sit and they wonder, like, why am I still unhappy? Like, I've worked too hard to be unhappy. Like, what is this emptiness? And so when
Mm,
people come to us, it's what we ask them because we're trying to understand what they really enjoy doing in this life. And then we try to, like I said, with writing, we try to help them see maybe how they can incorporate more of that into their life. It doesn't have to be a big change. You don't have to quit your job and start a business. Certainly, we can help if they want to do that. But
mm.
we just try to get people back in touch with what they actually like doing. Not necessarily what makes the most money or what they're good at, but like what truly lights them up.
It's a great question because when I heard you ask it, I asked myself, and so then I started thinking, well, I liked to play sports as a kid, but ultimately it was the competitiveness that I
Right.
liked. And, it was the camaraderie, it was being part of a team. I didn't really like solo sports. I like team sports,
Yep.
and so I like being part of a team. And then technology got introduced to me. And then
Mm.
all of a sudden I look out and it's, the next morning and I've been on the computer for 8 hours, didn't even know it,
Exactly.
So these are the things, that you take over. And even the music we listen to as kids, I find
Yep.
that as like, that's what we really go back to as adults. Oh, because it's just so much more than the music. It just brings you back to a different time.
Yeah, I keep trying to introduce the Backstreet Boys to my kids. I don't think they're really not into it, but there's still
They don't
time.
get it. They don't get it. Yeah, I think that's a real important question. So, how the pivot to finances?
Yeah, well, finances are such a big part of all of our lives, whether we like it or not. But one of my core beliefs is that finances is freedom. It's freedom. And I always tell people, budgets are permission to spend, not restrictions, right? And so when we are helping people become the best versions of themselves, we can't ignore personal finances. So the way I started with my work is I started as a financial writer, as a financial blogger. And in 2021, I published a personal finance book for moms because I felt like this was a big category of the population that
Hmm.
has been left out of the financial conversation. And so now it's like one of the life categories that we work on in personal development. So they go hand in hand.
Hmm. They certainly do. Interesting. And what's wrong with finance bros?
Oh man, I'm so excited I get to mention finance bros in this podcast too. Yeah, finance bros are just a this is me like personifying Wall Street, but what I mean when I say finance bros is just the overall culture of people and industries that make money intentionally difficult
Hmm.
and intentionally maybe a part of a club that not everybody is invited to.
Hmm.
And so, what I've always done as part of my work as a financial writer is take these challenging words and language and conversations and try to translate it into something that everyone can understand because everyone deserves to learn about investing. We all have like an equal opportunity to do it. It's just that the language is so restrictive
Hmm.
that there's lots of people out there who are well educated, smart people living their lives. And even the thought of investing something is so scary because it's so unknown. So I love like translating it and saying, like, look, this is not as hard as finance bros want you. I'm sure there's lots of very nice finance bros out
Of
there.
course.
But, this is not as hard as, society and Wall Street makes it seem. Like there's just this very straightforward ways that you can
Hmm.
invest. And, I think everyone thinks they're going to lose all their money like right away. And it's just, they can't risk it. And especially for women, I try to make it easy to understand.
Yeah, I think that's for some of that population. Those You're right. Those finance pros make it purposely. It's a
Yeah.
club that they only want a certain few to be invited on. And yeah, there's a certain stigma that goes along with that. That's quite unappetizing.
Yeah, I think things have changed. I think there's a lot of like financial influencers that break it down for people. Even the emergence of fintech apps and like really simple things that
Mm,
like invest on your behalf and explain it. I think that there's been a pretty big movement the past few years to sort of bring money, personal finance, and investing to the masses. And I'm here for it.
hmm. So, Catherine, you describe how you kind of had the Pinterest house, and
Yeah.
you have boy and girl twins, and everything was good. But then
Mhm.
some difficulties started happening,
Yeah.
and you had to part ways in your marriage. So you're forced to to deal with this. You want your kids to live a certain way, and
Yeah.
they love Nike, etc. And and so you're faced with this kind of decision, and so this kind of thrust you more into this
Yes.
financial independence.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and unfortunately, I went through a really unexpected divorce. And so when I talk about people living the checkbox life, like I come to
Mm,
it not as someone from high above, but as someone who has been there, who had a beautiful home and had all of these things, and then it all completely fell apart. And
mm,
I admit, like for a while there after my divorce, like my ego was like it full blown, and
mm,
I was like, I am not selling this house. Like I'm gonna cling to this life and this lifestyle. I don't want to disrupt the kids anymore. And another part of my ego was like, I wrote a money book. I'm gonna show everyone that I can have this, I can keep this house on my own with my own income. And then like it just got to the point where it was overwhelming, right? Like the basement flooded, and there was like a rat in this part. It's like all these different things, and I was just like, I can't take care of this house alone. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm trying to take care of these kids, and had this huge mortgage, and I just finally had to have like a come to Jesus moment,
mm,
basically. And I had to ask myself, like, if I was someone who read your book, and if I, came to you for coaching help, and I gave you my budget, I gave you my income, and I said, hey, I'm a business owner. I have variable income. Some months it's amazing, some months, it's not. And I asked you for help. What would you say? And I had
mm.
to be honest with myself. Like, I would say to sell the house.
Right.
You have to let go. And I did. And, it's the craziest thing. Like, I'm in this small apartment now, and I love it.
Right.
It's so nice.
Right.
And it's just so easy to take care of. And there's no, I'm not paying a guy to mow my lawn or to shovel snow. And
Mm,
there's
mm,
like no gardening. Again, I told you I'm not outdoorsy. Like, I actually feel safer again, living on my own. I didn't realize like I wasn't feeling safe in a house. Like now there's three keys to get up into my apartment, and there's all of these benefits, but I had to really look within myself and have an honest conversation with myself about, why are you keeping this house? Is it
mm,
because you want it? And I realized I was like trying to prove a point that no one cared about except for me.
mm.
And of course, living like this is much more affordable. It allows me to save more each month. And like, I'm finally, after 2 years of like kind of treading water, able to make progress on my life now.
Sometimes the hardest advice to take is our own.
I know. I was like, I'm like, I know better. but it just took a while.
Why do you recommend to start with the pizza crust?
Ah, the pizza crust. Yeah. So to explain that, a big part of what we teach at 5 Year You is that in order to be happy, that thing everyone's looking for, right? Because we get people in our coaching that, like I said, have kind of done everything. They've done the recipe, but they're really not feeling it. And it's because they might not be living a life as their authentic self. So we believe the path to happiness is authenticity. But in order to live your life as your authentic self, you have to believe that you are worthy of your preferences. And that can be as big as like I prefer to wake up with my own kids on Christmas morning, not travel to 7 aunties' houses on Christmas Day.
Mm,
It's worrying, it's putting yourself first, which society has made us believe is selfish, but it's your life, right? And so you maybe get to decide, one step at a time, how to live life through your own lens, through the things you actually want to be doing. So for me, we just said, like, oh my gosh, I actually like living in an apartment. Yeah,
mm,
all my kids' friends have these beautiful houses and whatever in this cute little town and their little sidewalks. We don't. And I'm okay with that because this is actually my preference.
hmm,
And so I use the pizza crust example, especially when talking to moms, because if you have kids, you know that when you order pizza on a Saturday night, everyone's like, "Oh, I want pepperoni," and no, I like bacon on mine. No, I want ham today. And you're just like, "Oh my god, I don't want to buy 3 pizzas because it's like $11 million now." And you're like, "Oh, but let's say you like gluten-free crust because eating pizza makes your stomach hurt." But like by the end of the day, you're like, "Fine, I'll order this pizza for you and this pizza for you." And then you end up like nibbling on your kids like crust and then your stomach hurts, right? And so we teach people, like, start
hmm,
small, honoring your own preferences. Like, order yourself the little personal pan size of gluten-free crust. Tell yourself that you are worth feeling good tomorrow. You
mm,
are just as worthy as your family members of having the kind of pizza you like. Plus, you're paying for it. So, but we push our own needs aside so much, and then we wonder why we're unhappy, run down. So, we say start with the pizza crust because it's like the tiniest example. And the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And suddenly you're like standing up to your grandma, like, look, I'm seeing you on the day after Christmas because I just can't do all this today. My family is, you know, my preference today.
mm. Yeah, take care of yourself first, Catherine. Yeah, I love that analogy, and it just paints such a great picture of what seems to happen quite often. What are some simple tips that we can learn that one should know about just financial freedom?
Oh, financially, I think that's great. I think the very first step, and it sounds simple, but it's awareness.
Mm.
It's again, getting to know yourself and why you do what you do.
Hmm.
Um, for example, it might seem like I'm like anti big houses, but I have a friend building one right now and she's so excited. But guess what? Her and her husband love having people over.
Right.
They
Right.
love barbecuing for people. That brings them so much joy. And so that is them living in their authenticity. Me, I don't want to cook for 10 people, right? So that
Mm.
would not be my authentic self. So just knowing your preferences and knowing your priorities, right? So their priority is hosting people, but it might not be traveling frequently. It might not be, kids and certain activities. Like, and your priorities can change, but all of us have the potential to live the lives we want without going into debt and pursuing financial freedom. But you have to know like your preferences and tendencies and spend in line with those things. A
Mm.
simple thing to do is like writing down what you spend, like just jotting it down on your phone notes app. And I noticed that when I do that, it actually makes me not spend, right? It makes you like not pick up this little thing that you see at the store. It makes you not go grab a coffee. When you
Mm.
bring awareness and you start writing down what you're spending, you also notice like if you tend to spend if you've had a bad day, if you tend to treat
Mm.
yourself after a hard moment, if you tend to do an ice cream run at night, which again, no judgment, right?
Right.
But it's
Right.
like if you take a look at what you do, you're like, oh shoot, there's like 6 times last month where I made like a 10 p.m. run to 7-Eleven for ice cream. You can be like, wow, I didn't realize I did that so often. And so, yeah, just awareness and
Hmm.
tracking. People get kind of scared to look at their numbers, but it really is the first step.
Yeah, it's fascinating how that also translate to health, like you kinda
Yep.
mentioned, just what are you eating all day? Why am I where I am? Well, what do make just journal, just write down what you eat. So
Yeah.
why not just extend that to what you spend your money on?
I think that, yeah, and I know that congratulations, by the way. I know you lost a lot of weight, and I know that
Mm,
takes significant discipline. I think there are a lot of commonalities between health and losing weight and money. In fact, it's pretty common for people who pay off a ton of debt to also get healthy at the same time, because
Huh.
it's the same sort of like overindulgences, or again, it's not a
Mm.
bad thing. It's just we don't have a lot of awareness of what we do. There's so much mindless eating, and there's so much mindless spending.
Spending. Yeah.
Hmm.
You have this layers of life, this kind of
Yes.
5 ring diagram that you kind of walk people through. So we kind of did it a little bit when we first
Mhm.
talked about what you liked as a child, but maybe walk me through it a bit.
Yeah. So the layers of life is our core teaching strategy. In fact, there's 5 layers, and we do 5-week coaching intensives. And the idea of the layers of life, you have to think of it like a big target where the inside of the circle is your sense of self, your preferences, your soul, and everything that you've ever wanted to do, everything that makes you you. And so depending on, people might, their essence, their soul, their energy, whatever you
Mm,
believe, but that is the core of who you really are as a person. And then as you go out, you have, family and hobbies and career. You have, your finances, and you get all the way to the outer ring. And the outer ring is like your title at work and the vacations you take and social
hmm,
media accounts, and whether or not you got a promotion, and how many friends you have, and all the things that you do. And the challenge, and what we've noticed, is that when people are unhappy and dissatisfied in life, it's because they are living life and making their decisions from the outer ring in, instead of
hmm,
from the inner core out. And so you asked, why the pizza crust? Well, if you buy the pizza everyone else wants, you're going off of their preferences and their interests and what makes them happy. But when you order your gluten-free crust, you're making a decision from the core of the layers of life. And so we start, like I said, with the question of what you like to do as a kid. And that's the first layer. We show people, we remind them of who they are. We take them through journaling exercises, and we work with them one on one, because most of the time when you get to like your 30s and 40s, you're like busy taking care of stuff. You have a lot of
mm,
responsibilities. And like I said, you probably have to mow your lawn. And so you're not taking a lot of time to think about what makes me happy. Like, what's fun? Do I actually like taking my kid to like 11 million soccer practices? Like, what do I actually want to do? And you can start learning like who you are. And then we kind of like go through career again as the 5 weeks go on. And we try to show people, how to live from the inside out, even if it's just adding back in like a little hobby, even if it's saying, like, look, hire something out, whatever it is, to create just a little bit of space in someone's life. Usually after the 5 weeks, they actually have a sense of purpose. They remember what they like and who they are. And so that is our teaching method, is the layers of life.
hmm. And Catherine, do you get pushback because sometimes people will be hesitant to answer like the hard questions?
I think by the time people come to us, they're kind of ready. Like,
Ah,
if I mean,
ah,
we always joke, my partner and I, and he and I co-host the podcast together. Like, we're not capable of small conversations. We're not like, "How's the weather?" We're like, "Oh yeah, I remember this like childhood trauma, and that's probably why I did this thing." And so, usually, people find us from podcasting, and so they come to us, and they know that we're not going to ask, like, what color shirt they like wearing or something like that. They know that we're going to go deep. I will say, like, it is some people, it is hard and uncomfortable, but usually when they come to us, they're ready. They've kind of like gotten to that point where
hmm,
they're ready to, like, for some type of change, because um, they've had too much persistent unhappiness and too much of checkbox life, and
mm,
they're ready for something to be different. And even a small difference can
right.
can really make a positive impact.
Have you ever had an instance where somebody talks about what they want to do, who they are, and then at a certain point they change their mind. Wait a second, that's really not what I want. This is what I want. Is that?
That's a really good question. I think that it's not so much like this is what I want and this is what I don't want. It's when we
Mm,
start to get to the layers of, family and kids and things like that. It can be really hard to choose your own preferences, right? Like you can't most people can't like say, "Oh my gosh, I've hated my job for so long. I'm just going to quit." Right?
mm,
Like you have to, support your family and things like that. It it's almost easier to say all the things that you like, but once you get to the outer rings, we realize like how much impact other people's choices and what we've each built in our own lives. It's very hard to make those bigger changes. But what we can do is set a plan in place, and it's like, okay, it's clear that you hate your job. So maybe one of the things that might actually bring you some life is like um, joining a coding class at night, right? If we've
mm,
realized that they liked computers as a kid, maybe you shouldn't be in sales. Like maybe you're tired of talking to people all day long. And even the act of learning something new, it's almost like people need permission to
mm,
learn as an adult, to try a new hobby, to do something different. So even we say, look, that's why the podcast is called 5 Year You. Like we're talking like over the next 5 years, let's put some things into place to help you become the person you want to be. Because learning your preferences and all of these things and making changes and finding work you love and learning how to set boundaries with families and all of these different things, and learning that it really doesn't matter what kind of car you drive unless you absolutely loved cars as a kid like my
mm,
son
mm,
does, and like that's your greatest joy in life, and like every obscure car, and that's your jam. Well, that's something else, right? But yeah, to answer your question, it's not so much pushback from them. There's sometimes some discouragement when we get to the outer layers, and that's why we're like, okay, what can you like sign up for? What can you do? Sometimes just knowing you have a coding class one night a week is enough to be like, I know I'm doing something for me and it's something for future me. And I might not be done with this boot camp for like 2 years, but at the end of it, I might be able to do a completely different job that I actually like better. So it's just kind of giving people like a little bit of permission and joy.
mm. Yeah, because we get caught up, we get caught up in what we're doing in our job and our family, whatever we're doing. And then sometimes to kind of step away from ourselves and ask those hard questions. What do we want? What
Yeah.
do I find that oftentimes it's easier to work on. I still run a business that I can work on it when I'm away from it, when I'm out of it. It's
Yeah.
because I'm almost seeing it from the outside. I was just at a high end bar here in the city a couple weeks ago, and all these liquors and everything. And I said, "Make me a drink." And the bartender says, "I don't know you. Tell me what you like." You know,
Oh,
there you go. Of course he
yeah.
doesn't know,
Yeah.
right? Because so that right there at a simple interaction of how could he possibly know what I like? He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's looking at me. So as well, I like spirit forward. I don't like sweet. So I start answering
Yeah.
some questions, and then okay, based on that, I can make it. So it's not different from what you're talking about.
That's exactly. I think that's a really good analogy. And if you think about it like that, and if you use that analogy, all of us, primarily people in North America, are under a marketing spell. And so much so that all of us have gone to the bar and none of us have asked for what we've wanted. We've said the only thing available at this bar is that you go to college, take out loans if you need to, you
Mm,
get a job, you try to pay back the loans with your job, get married, have kids, and oh, the pinnacle of your life is going to be telling everyone you've bought a house. Make sure you
mm,
take a vacation. Make sure that even if you go into debt, you put your kids in sports. And then make sure your kids go to college and repeat the cycle, even if they have to borrow money to do it. That's the only thing available at this
no.
bar.
Hmm.
And this is the American dream.
Right.
That's what the bar's called.
It's depressing.
Yeah. But it's what most people value, and it's constantly reinforced, and it's such a busy, stressful way to live, I think personally,
Mm,
that nobody has time to take a step out and say, I don't like this.
mm,
I don't want to do that. There are little pockets of communities, right? There's a fire movement, financial independence, retire early. There's some, frugality communities. There's a growing number of people who have like decided to live in a van or an RV and travel the
mm,
country. We're talking about tiny percentages of people, and they grow huge followings on social media because everyone's like, that sounds so nice. I could never do that, but they're so lucky that they're doing this completely different thing from the rest of us.
hmm. So when you walk through these layers with people and you kind of, make them, put a mirror in front of them, figure out what they want, walk them through from the in to out, like you said, does it come to a point where now it's time to create a plan based on what we know?
Yeah, we like have the journaling prompts for each layer. And so again, the plan is like week 1, and a lot of it's going to be awareness each week, but what we do is like it's like a 5-week intensive that you go through it. And then for 12 months we meet on the phone once a month, and then they'll have like homework and different things in between, and we'll
Hmm.
walk them through it. So they have access to us for the full year, but it's really that like push start um, that sort of gets people thinking differently. And yeah, so that's basically how it works. Yes, we create a plan with the person, and we try not to overwhelm them. Like again, every single layer, we really believe in these like kind of long term changes. And so depending on the person, it might be like, okay, it sounds like your core issue is work, or it sounds like your core issue is you've completely like disregarded your own health and well-being. And so
Mm.
something like that. So just depending on the person, we might focus on one thing, and usually when you improve one thing, it kind of spills into everything else.
Catherine, has technology and AI helped the financial world?
I think so. I think so, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely interested in AI, and I think that we've only like barely touched the surface of
Mm,
what's going to happen. But if you think about different like robo investing apps, there's so many things that make it a lot easier to invest and to grow. And now you really don't need a financial advisor. You don't need to go sit in somebody's office and have them make you a plan. There's so much technology now that can auto adjust for you, that you can type in your goals and how much money you want to have at retirement. There's apps that can suggest it. There's apps that invest spare change for teenagers. My
right.
own kids have their own debit cards, and with the debit cards came money videos that they could watch and that mom could pay them to watch. It had like a part in there, like I could set the price of what I'd pay them if they watched this money lesson, organized by age and topic. And they can earn allowance for learning about money. So, absolutely, I think technology is only going to make personal finance more accessible to people. And AI is only going to help customize and make suggestions smarter as far as money goes. You can go in a chat GPT right now and say, hey, I'm 35 years old. I'm supposed to have this much saved for retirement, but I don't. Here's a list of my expenses. Here's a list of this. What do you suggest? And I use chat GPT every day for all
Yeah, me
kinds of
too.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, for the simplest of things I use it for, and
Yeah.
the most difficult. I was really interested to hear like how you would pay you would pay your kids for some rewards that they would
Oh,
do.
yes. I am this is my big controversial take on kids and money. So every time I say I pay my kids for chores and learning and things like that, I pay them to read books, which is like the biggest joke on them because I super love it. And everyone's like, "Oh, I can't get my kid to read." I'm like, "Have you thought about paying them to do it?" And the reason I do this, and there's like a really important caveat to this, is they are in charge of their spending, right?
Right.
They do not get $10 from mom when they want to walk to town with their friends and go to the ice cream shop. They get stuff from me for their birthdays and Christmas. Maybe some like back to school clothes and stuff like that. Or if they see something special, sometimes I will get it and like hold on to it until they've made enough money to pay me back.
Mm.
But they're 10 and they are in charge of their monthly budgets. It's up to them how much money they make, and it's up to them how much they spend. And so I pay them $1 to wash clothes, $1 to fold, $1 to put it away, $1 for the dishes in, $1 for the dishes out.
Hmm.
Small books are $3. Nice big fat chapter books are 10. And they know not to ask me if they're going to town. All these other kids have money from their parents. They have a copy of their parents' cards or things like that. My twins have to think like, do I really want this $4 slice of pizza? And so, 2 years ago, my son saved up for a PS5. It was $500.
Right.
And he was so proud of that. He was very into Pokemon cards at the time, and all of his money was going towards Pokemon cards. And he had to really like stop himself from going to the card store because it was too tempting because he had a bigger goal, which was his PS5. And there's a smile on his face when he paid for that himself with a very helpful birthday money push from his grandparents at the end. You know, so a lot of people are like, I can't believe you pay your kids for chores. This is part of a family. Well, again, I'm a solo mom at this point, and so I need the help. I'm not interested in the drama of begging for help. And so this is how I do it, but it also gives them some financial confidence to like make their own choices. So there's a lot that kids can do at 10, by the way. You'd be surprised at how well a 10-year-old boy folds clothes.
Hmm. And it also, he's going to treat that PlayStation so much differently
Oh,
now
yeah.
because, he's not going to leave it open, or he's not going to, he's going to treat, because he's the one who spent his
100%.
heart. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the completely different view. Yeah, I also loved how you regimented the meals every night, Taco
Yes.
Tuesday, and yeah,
Yeah, and I'm not naturally like I'm more of like a creative, so I'm not
really.
naturally very like um good with like meal planning. I don't really like cooking. Like I much prefer, again, still much prefer reading, writing, working. Like that is my zone of happiness. I don't want to cook dinner, and yet they ask every night for it. It's never ending. But so to me, this is like I have to like hack my own habits, and I have to create a disciplined approach because I have to like force myself to do it. So yes, I have a kind of a light regimen on dinner days, and then I get them to help with different things.
You consider yourself more art or science?
Oh, artsy for sure. Yeah, just definitely a creative for sure. I have to like, yeah, I have to really, really work on the discipline all the time. Discipline is not like a natural thing for me. It has to be like a created thing. I have to like create the scarcity, create the plan,
Huh.
create punishments, create accountability in order to get everything done.
And you do it because you know it's a necessity, so you just do it and then get it over with, and
I
so you can go
try
back
to.
to
I
your art.
actually I just, like, put on my computer, "Procrastination is the biggest wealth killer," because I read that in an article yesterday,
Mm.
and I was like, "Oh, man, I need that." So I wrote it down and stuck it right to the front of my computer.
Huh. Has there anything, Catherine, in the last, I don't know, month or so that you've changed your mind on?
Ooh, that I've changed my mind on. That's a really good question. I mean, nothing is like jumping up and coming to mind. I will say I am definitely working right now. I just moved to a new place, to a new state, so I've had to update a lot of new things.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very like pro mental health, so I started going to a new therapist. And I am really working on being kinder to myself in my head. And so, even the conversation we had just now, where I'm like, I'm not very disciplined, or I have to make myself do it. I'm actually kind of implying that it's something not nice about myself instead of focusing on I am so self-aware that I know myself so well that I have created all these creative little strategies to make myself do what I am supposed to do. I loathed making dinner for so long, and now I've created this little creative strategy to make it easier on myself. And so I don't know if it's changing my mind on it, but something I'm working on is trying to see the good in what I do because, again, solo parenting, trying to raise these kids, running this business, growing this podcast, it's easy to focus on the gaps and not the gains.
Yeah, it certainly is. And might I say that it takes discipline to know that you think you don't have discipline. I don't know if that really came out right, but
Yeah.
so I started my business in the 90s. I'm sorry.
No, no, I was going to say, yeah, you have to like care about having discipline to like try to get some. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah.
You started your
And
business in the 90s.
there's yeah, there's no real right answer to that. Yeah, I'm a little bit older than you, Catherine, and I started business in the 90s. I was working way too hard. I was working, 14, 16-hour days and not paying attention to my health. And, the doctor said to me, if I don't lose 340 pounds, I was at 340. I was
Okay.
340 pounds,
Wow.
46 inch waist. I'm now 232-inch waist. And she said, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. So this,
Oh, wow.
rocked my world,
Yeah.
driving home, punching the steering wheel. And,
Yeah.
you know, uh, this is my pie hole, right? I'm the one who did this. And your body's wonderful because, it tricks you into thinking you're okay. I never felt that way. Sure,
Right.
I'd go upstairs and I'd be tired a little bit, but I just got used to it. And
Yeah.
perhaps the same analogy can be done in your finances, right?
Oh,
You just
yeah.
kind of get used to being at a certain place until you kind of get that come to Jesus. So I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 130 pounds, and I kept it off. You can't look at it. I'm going to use the same thing in finances. You can't look at it as a finishing line. I'm there. Okay, now I can go back to my bad habits because 90% of the people, get it back. So the one word answer as to how you did it, because everybody wants to know what's your secret. Like there's some secret. There's no secret, Catherine.
Yeah.
It's discipline. You alluded to it more than once now,
Yeah.
and you feel that you're not a disciplined person. But I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
I feel like I say that I'm just not naturally disciplined. But I guess I don't know if anybody is, but I do think there's
Mm,
some personality types where they do things, they put something on their list and they do it no matter what. And again, I'm such like I'm so like always like reviewing myself in my brain and why am I the way that I am, that I realized that I thrive on accountability. Not
hmm.
the greatest thing when you are running your own business and you're sitting by yourself for hours and things like that. So for me, getting a business partner, like setting goals, like setting things in the calendar that have to be done at certain times. I have done like so many experiments on myself. Like, how many times do I get up when I'm writing an article? And like, how many times do I convince myself I need a snack when I'm right on a deadline? And like,
Wow.
how many times am I late because of this? Or do I create these problems? And I'm just always trying to better myself. But I feel like how does discipline play a role? Well, every single day there's things that I have to do. And if I don't do them, I don't earn money and then I can't take care of my kids. And that's
Mm,
just fact. I don't have a 9 to 5 job where I get my paycheck no matter what and I can like slack off a little bit. It's like if I don't perform, there's plenty of other financial writers my clients can hire that are not me. And so but I need that external pressure and I need that accountability and I need those deadlines in order to get things done.
mm. You hold yourself accountable. But it seems to me, Catherine, you're full of self-reflection.
Yes. Yes. Like I said, we don't really like chat about the weather, you know. It's always like deep introspection and figuring things out and yes, lots of self-reflection.
Mm, mm. And I don't know. I can't. So I have this ongoing thesis that discipline is a spectrum of about 10 elements. So focus, mastery, control, routine, order. Seems to me you have all those. I mean, to create the regimen of dinner every night, to pay your children, to have this
Yeah,
structure set up. Again, there's no wrong or right answer. It's the beauty of it, but I
yeah.
just um when I'm forced to come up with how did you do it? I'm son of immigrants. Okay. So my father didn't have he got his first pair of shoes until when he was 12, right? He's a
Wow.
poor Italian immigrant. So this is very, very different. So I was raised with those kinds of ideas, get your money and save it because you never know what
Yeah,
might happen. So I kind of come up with these ideas too. So when I'm forced to answer the question, how did you do such a big thing, lose all that weight? I said, well, I didn't have a choice. It's my daughter now. I have a family.
yes, yes,
It's not just me. I can abuse myself all I want, but now I'm responsible for this little person that I have somehow brought into this world, and and I have to do certain things a certain way in order to make sure this child is okay.
yeah.
And so it's interesting when I talk to some people, they see discipline as something very militant.
Mm,
You're to roll, you fold your bed, you're
yeah,
everything is very structured. Everything is very structured, and
yeah,
and I talk to some musicians who give me oh, I can't talk to you. I'm undisciplined. You're a musician. You know
yeah.
chords. You know structure. I don't know really what I'm ranting here about, but
I
I'm
think
just
it's
making.
interesting that discipline is a spectrum because
Yes.
and maybe that's why I'm like, I don't know if it resonates or not because maybe I'm thinking of a military person who
Mm.
works out for an hour every day and I'm kind of like, "Oh, sometimes I work out and sometimes I don't."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think it's really interesting to say that it's on a spectrum.
Yeah, my ongoing thesis as I talk to many people. What is it about thrifting that you love?
It's my hobby. I am so excited to announce that I think I have a hobby. Because again, it took me a while to realize, wait, I think it's a hobby. It is. I am just this naturally frugal person. Like I'm this money nerd. And I call myself a lazy reseller too, because and maybe this is my discipline. So I have this hobby. I love to find really nice things for really little money. And sometimes I flip them on eBay and something
Huh.
like that. I love history. I love learning about different pieces. I love taking my phone in there. I do like Google reverse image search. I try to like learn about different
Hmm.
things. I'm always looking on the bottom of cups to see like who made it, where's it's from,
Huh.
what countries it made in. And it helps me feed my son's insatiable desire to wear all Nike clothes because there's a lot of them at thrift stores.
Mm,
And I come
mm,
home and I wash it and I give it to him and he's happy. He doesn't care where it came from. He just wants the check on there, right? And it's again, this is sort of like my uh middle finger to society like, look,
mm,
you're prescribing that we all wear these things and this is what's cool and stuff like that. Did you know that you can go to a place and get the exact same thing without going into debt? I have found
mm,
very nice things there. But I have like my thrifting checking account and I only
mm,
use that money to thrift. And then anytime I sell something on eBay, it goes just into that account. And so that's how I keep myself from like going wild at the thrift store. And so it kind of helps me to not bring a lot of stuff in the house because if the account gets low, I'm like, I better sell some stuff. Otherwise, I can't go do my fun thing.
uh,
So
okay.
yeah, usually one or two things it's like sells for something big and it keeps me going for a month or two. It's like a game I play with myself because I can't just have a normal hobby and just like
It's gotta
knit
be
or
normal.
something. It has to have like money and its separate account and like selling it. But this is yeah, that's the deal with thrifting. And then when I get pushback, I'm like, and it's good for the earth. If you hate
Uh,
everything I just said, also it's good for the earth. So,
Wow, wow. So you create a little slush fund so you can play with it and have a
yeah.
little fun. Yeah, yeah. How incredibly structured and disciplined. Might I say, just little old me,
Oh,
my 2 cents. What motivates you, Catherine Collins?
This kids. Yeah, I think I'd be in a very different place without them, and
Hmm.
I just want to learn everything I can about myself and happiness and the world so that I can relay those lessons to them. And you know they motivate me to try to be a better mom. They've been through some hard things with me. Like I said,
Mm,
the divorce wasn't easy on them either,
mm,
and there's a lot of times when you go through hard things where it's really hard to like get out of bed. You're sort of in a freeze state, and had I not had them, I think I could have been in a very different situation, could have been a lot more depressed. But because they exist in my life, um, I get up and do what I have to do, and try to make the life beautiful for them.
hmm. So, given that motivation, Catherine, how do you measure success?
Well, I think I measure success a lot differently now. I kind of call it like before Catherine and then like Catherine 2.0. And I think the
Mm,
big revelation and part of starting 5 Year You is realizing that all the measures of success that we thought were it are not it. And so now, if I take it down to like a day by day basis, I measure a day by how well rested I am, by,
mm,
how well I ate that day. I do
mm,
measure it like, did you get the work done you were supposed to get done? Did you like lose your cool with the kids, or were you calm because you were well rested? There's like a big time in my life that I would just stay up to like 1 a.m. writing and try to like meet all these deadlines, have as many clients as I could. And now I'm just like, as long as I earn this amount and it allows me to have good rest, it makes day to day a lot better. So to me, my success is now on like how well I'm doing physically and mentally versus how well the business is doing, which is what my measure of success was for probably a decade.
mm. So, I'm currently talking to Catherine
2.0.
v
Yeah.
2.0.
Yeah.
What do you think 3.0 has in, or will there be?
Yeah, I mean, I maybe there is a 3.0 out there. I think I've made a lot of really big changes, again, with my health and mental health and things like that. I've completely changed the way I eat in like the last 2 years, actually.
Hmm.
And I think 3.0 is even, better than 2.0. Maybe financially independent, maybe
Mm,
um, if a client is hard to work with, having the freedom to be like, I don't really want to work with them anymore,
mm,
things like that. There's still
mm,
some things in this 2.0 life that I have to do because it
mm,
just makes sense as far as like running my life, earning money, paying bills. But 3.0 might have, some kids in college debt free and financial independence, and a nice grown 5 year you that has helped a lot more people. We're still early stages now. So,
mm. There's certain satisfaction in firing clients.
yeah. I got one I'm thinking about right now. I'd like to fire, but oh well. We'll see.
Yeah, I've had the great, pleasure of doing that a handful of times, and, yeah, there's, you're on both ends of those, that, coin, of course, but, I mean, I love what you're doing, Catherine. I love your podcast. I love so much that you're so full of this self-reflection, and you just don't get what you've learned and kept it to yourself. You're helping others with
Thank
it. You're
you.
open with it. This is what I've gone through. Maybe you've gone through something similar. This is
Mm,
how I'm handling it now. This is how I
yeah.
think I'm going to handle it now. Maybe you can learn from it too. It just takes, to me, that's a trait of a remarkable person that just doesn't close it in, that opens it up. And I really, really appreciate that honesty and
Thank you.
your time. Anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah. You can email me at hello at 5 year you. And if anything resonates with you, we are always happy to talk to people, no strings attached, and explain what we do and how we help and how we coach people. And we are big believers in just giving, and that the right people who are meant to work with us will hear this and resonate and come. So yeah, hello at 5-year use the email, and then it's at 5-year you on all socials. It's spelled out FIVE. The podcast is 5-year you, and yeah, we'd love to have you as part of our community.
Completely spelled out, FIVE, 5-year, YEAR, and then
That's right.
YOU.com. You're of course, the
All the
podcast on
places.
Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook.
Yeah.
You're all there. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. I thank you so much for your time. I hope next time when I'm in your area, we can possibly get a cup of
Sure.
tea
I would love that. That sounds
and
good.
maybe do some thrifting.
Yes, anytime.
You
You
could
could
show me.
you could
Yeah.
even use the thrift slush fund.
Catherine, you be well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.